Hi everyone, Christina here with One Creative Direction. How are we all doing today? We're going to do a how-to instructional video. We're going to go through step by step how to make these beautiful Lazy Susans. These are 15-inch right here. As you can see, I have one with some beautiful dolphins in it. Yeah, beautiful blues. If you saw one of my first videos after I moved here, I apologize for the light, you guys. I'm in my living room. This is a kind of a tie-dye inspiration. This one is sold. And then I've got a sea turtle. I try to keep it out of the light. Look how pretty that is. And then I decided to do a purple one since my favorite color is purple. It's got some really nice gold in there. I really love my Pebeo iridescent gold. So those are the finished Lazy Susans. I typically do a lot of 15-inch. So we're gonna go through the whole process. So we'll get started with step one. So obviously I'm gonna set this one up here so I have a little bit more space. I want to apologize for the shadows. I'm in my living room. When I have a large order, I always have to get out my folding tables and put them up in my living room so I have workspace. I have a huge order for 12 Lazy Susans, and they want 12-inch, and they want coaster sets to match each one of these. So I'm gonna be very, very busy here pretty soon. I've already started on it, and we're gonna go through some of that when we go through the full process. So step one for making one of these beautiful Lazy Susans. Now you have two options. I choose this option, the process that we're gonna go through today, for financial reasons, for ease, for lots of different reasons. So you can go buy an already made Lazy Susan. To me, when I first started making Lazy Susans, I didn't even think about that. I just made my own. But after some time, I thought, maybe I can find ones that are already made and it wouldn't, I wouldn't have to do all this. But quite honestly, they're very expensive. For a 15-inch, I think they're like over $20. I think that was IKEA. Once in a while you can find them on clearance, but they're still close to $15, $20 a piece. So that's pretty expensive in my book. So I just make my own. And a lot of times I don't like the Lazy Susan, the hardware part of it on the bottom. So, in the end, to me, it's just a better option to make my own. So I start with the wood round. I like the 1-inch thick. I don't like thinner Lazy Susans. I really liked the 1-inch thick. Now, where do you get these wood rounds? I'm glad you asked. I recently moved to Florida, so it's been a little bit more of a challenge finding some. When I was in Ohio, Menards, if you have a Menards in your area, in my opinion, it's the best place to buy these wood rounds, especially the 15-inch. They had 12, 15. I think you could even order a smaller size on their website, but in the store, you could go in anytime and buy 12, 15, 18, and on up to, I think, 24, 32, 30, I don't know, 36. I can't remember, but lots and lots of options. Now, since I'm in Florida, I was able to locate some of the 15-inch rounds at Lowe's. A little bit more expensive than Menards, but not a lot more expensive. It's not horrible. But they don't sell the 12s, and they don't sell any other size except like table size. So I went on a search, and I found this company. It's called In and Out Home. And they have bulk 12-inch and 15-inch, and that's pretty much it. I think you can buy a single in the larger sizes, like table sizes. But to me, they were very expensive. way more expensive than Lowe's and Menards, like by $20 for their large sizes, right? But I did get a box of 24 of the 12-inch rounds at a fairly good price. So I was pretty pleased with that. And they came in a box, and they had the Hobby Lobby stickers on them. So Hobby Lobby sells the 12-inch, at least here where I'm at, for $11.99. Even on sale, I got these for 1/4 of that cost. They were a little over $4 a piece. So, and shipping was free. So, like I said, we start with our wood round, unless you buy the full Lazy Susan already assembled and everything. And then, to me, it's just a bit challenging because I like to paint the bottom of mine, and that makes it a little more challenging. So we won't really go over that process. I will mention it occasionally. So with this, the first thing I do is take it outside, and like I said, I bought a box of 24 of them. I've already taken them outside, and depending on how rough they are, a lot of times they're super rough along the outside, especially the Menards ones. That I always seem to have a lot of sanding to do on those. These came pretty good, but I use a product called Craftnique. It's made to be a barrier between the wood and your acrylic. It's called Universal White by Craftnique. I buy this at Crystalac as well as my top coat, if you've seen any of my videos. And in order to put that product on, they say to lightly sand first. So depending on how much sanding is needed, how rough this is, I'll do, an aggressive sand if it needs, some sanding, and then I'll do a light sand. So it's a nice smooth surface that you're applying it on. And then once I get that done, then I take a big paintbrush and I brush off all the, the sawdust. All right. And then I bring those inside, and that's why my table's up, because it's a lot easier to do them in bulk. So I use these bed risers, and I just put them all on bed risers. It's number one, it's easier to paint around the edges, and it's easier for them to dry this way and for me to slide them around my table as I paint them all. As you can imagine, these take up a lot of room. So basically what I do is I apply typically 2 coats. If it's something that's super stubborn, has a lot of knots, a lot of like tannins coming through the wood, I might put more than 2 coats. But my standard practice is 2 coats. So I'll coat the side, and I'll coat one side of it. I don't coat both. So this is the raw side. Okay. Now, when I first started making these, I would take contact paper, and I had templates for 12 and 15 inch, and I would cover the back with contact paper. But I have pretty much stopped doing that because I don't feel that it's necessary, because I do end up painting the back. So I'm good with whatever little bit of paint gets around the edge. Now, if I was going to do a cut pour and be handling this and have to tilt and stuff, I would probably put that contact paper on, because I wouldn't want the paint to get all over the back of it. But as it stands, it just gets a little tiny bit around the edge, especially when I do the Dutch pours. So after the 2 coats, then I take these back outside, and I'll take a really fine sandpaper or sanding sponge. Usually anywhere between 220 and 440 is fine, and you just want to lightly sand. When you apply this Craftnique, it's not like super rough, but it has like just a little bit. And once you take the sandpaper across it, it is super smooth. Especially important on the edges here. That way the paint is, able to go off the sides, right? So sand the bare wood, 2 coats of Craftnique Universal White, light sand again, and then they're ready to paint, okay? And for the rest of the process, I'm gonna take you over to my island, but just wanna mention real quick, if you're gonna invest in a product like this, and it's not that expensive, Prior to using this, I was using Zinsser, and there's another one, I can't remember what it's called. I honestly like this one a lot better. I felt like when I was using the other products, I still got some warping. With this, I've never had that issue. Once in a great while, on my wood coasters, they may warp a little bit, but within a day or two, they flatten right out. So I'll put actually, I think the link for this is down below in the description box if you're interested in purchasing that. But I always take mine and put it in a squeeze bottle. It's a lot easier to maintain and apply. And the thing is, with pretty much anything like this, paint, anything, if you leave this container open for too long, it's going to get hard and goobery once it gets wet again. You know the spiel. So it's just a lot easier to keep it nice and fresh without goobers and stuff if you keep it in a squeeze bottle. So with that said, I'm gonna bring you up back over to my island so we can go over the rest of the process. Okay guys, here we are. We're gonna go over the process after we get it ready to paint. Okay, so after we sand it that second time, then we paint. So I've already painted 3 of the ones that I needed to paint. Just did a few samples for my client. And here's 3 of them. She's from Maryland, and they do Maryland crabs, I guess, is maybe their, I'm not sure if it's related to a team or something else. So this one, she wanted blues, and then I did a crab in the center. And then she wanted a seashell. Again, really cool blues. And this one, she wanted a sunset, like a Florida palm tree and a sunset. She spends half her time here, half her time in Maryland. So I did that. She wants some, I think she picked out 3 different dolphin pictures, a couple of sea turtles. So she has like a variety. So what I do is, you've seen my videos on how to paint these, so I'm not going to go over that process. The latest video I have is that tie-dyed one that I showed you in the beginning of the video. So once you've got this painted and it's dry, I don't wait too long after the paint dries to put the stencil on. That way it can all dry at the same time. But of course, if you don't have time, you don't have time. So that's the way it is. So what I do once all the paint is dry, and I'm gonna grab this, oh, that's not the stencil. We'll grab this one. So basically what I do in order to get this design on here, and basically I bought a bunch of these little tiny stencils. They're almost the perfect size that goes in the center of my Lazy Susans. So basically what I do is I find the center and I take the stencil, and I'm gonna try to bring this in a little closer. So I basically take the stencil, find the center, and it's a little hard to see. Let's do the other side. Let's just pretend that this is painted. All right, we're gonna find our center, and we're gonna center our stencil. And what I usually do is I take a Sharpie. These are 3 inches in diameter, and I mark halfway on each side. So I can take a ruler and just, you know, these are almost 12. They're about a little over 11 and a half. So I basically just center the ruler on there and try to get the center of the stencil both ways, right? So once you get the center, then I take a little bit of painter's tape and I tape it down. Now, one thing to keep in mind is if your design is really close to the side, like this one is, you see that? It's really close to the side like that, or down here. I always make sure I put tape along that edge in case you go over with your stencil design when you're applying the paint. So we get our stencil, we tack it down with a little bit of painter's tape. I always do just a little bit in the 4 corners, and then again, if it's close to the edge, I'll put a little bit along there to prevent any overage, okay? And then basically what I'll do is I'll go get all of the tube paint that I use to mix these Dutch pour colors. I don't use the mixed paint. I use it straight out of the tube. And I'm gonna move this over. I'll use it straight out of the tube, and I'll put a little dab of each color on my paper plate or whatever you wanna use. And then I use these wedges. So the first step is, once you get it in place where you want it, is I use Golden's Soft Gloss Gel. So basically, once you've got this taped down, you dip your sponge in a little bit of this and you go over your whole design, okay? You wanna, basically, what this is gonna do is it's gonna make sure that that stencil sticks to your surface and doesn't move around when you go to apply your paint. So you don't need a lot of it, you just need a light coat of it. So I'll just dab around all the way around my stencil, all right? And it doesn't need to dry. I usually basically will take the time, once I've got it down, I'll put my gel away, I'll get my scissors out and cut this off and get my paint all ready. By that time, it's fine. I would say within 5 to 10 minutes, you want to paint on it, or you can paint on it. Honestly, I've never like let it sit for a really long time and then painted on it, so I can't speak to that. But about 5 to 10 minutes. It's usually about 5 for me. And basically, you're going to take your sponge, and after you've, like I said, you put a little dot of each color. You don't need a lot. I mean, a tiniest little amount, because it's going to go a long way, especially if you have a really small stencil. If it's a bigger stencil, you might want a little more paint. But you're going to take this, after you've cut that off with the gel on it, and you're going to dip it. And what I usually do is, like for my tie-dye, I usually like just do like an ombre, like you go from one color to the other and just kind of like blend them as you go, right? But for a design like this, I wanted, you know, the sun to be yellow and orange, and I wanted the palm tree to be mostly blue. I put a little bit of gray in the dolphin, and of course the birds are Payne's gray. There is a little bit of Payne's gray in here. So that's what I try to do, is kind of match the colors. So for a turtle, I would probably start with the darker colors on the outside, and you just want to, you know, dab your colors on your stencil, you know, and I'll start on the outside, you know, and do my darker colors, and then I'll take that first color, put a little bit of the second color in and mix it a little bit, and just kind of try to blend, and you just kind of work your way to the center and just make it look cool, you know, or, you know, do it however you want. But I just kind of try to like blend each color and try to incorporate a lot of the colors or all of the colors that I used, right? So once it's painted, once you get it all done, I immediately pull that stencil off. And then of course, once you pull the stencil off, then you just let this dry. So yeah, so I usually wait about 2 to 3 weeks before I top coat these. So I went ahead, and I usually don't do this until after I've done the top coat, but it doesn't really matter. So typically after I get my top coat on, after it's dried and I put my top coat on, and if you've watched my videos, you know I use Bright Tone. But again, typically I put the top coat on first and then I paint the back. So I put a couple of coats of this on, and it's dry. And once it's dry is typically when I will take my stamp and sign it and put the top coat date on it. But since we haven't top coated it, I'm not gonna do that just yet. So the finishing touch is obviously assembling the hardware. So these ones that I buy on Amazon, they don't come with screws. I just happen to have a ton of screws here. So basically what you do is you have 4 holes. These large holes are where you're gonna drill through. So this is the bottom. So this gets attached to here. So you can tell there's a little bit of a taper off, right? So this is what you're going to, the smaller edge is what you're going to screw onto the back. This is what is going to be, this is a nice flat area you can see, right? So basically what you're gonna do is, you're gonna again find your center, and you're going to, typically what I do is I put a center point in, and then I lay this here, and then I measure around the edge. And I recently created a template for myself to make it a little easy, but I'll measure to make sure it's the same distance all the way around. And it doesn't have to be exactly perfect, but if you have it way off, when you go to turn this, it's gonna look really weird, right? It's just not gonna be good. So make sure you get it as close to center as possible, just so it looks nice when you spin it. But you've got this really large hole here. I don't know if you can see that. That's where you're going to, and I have an automatic drill, a cordless drill. So basically what I usually do is find my center, and then I'll take and I'll mark that, and then you can find every hole. I'll mark that one, and then I'll turn it again and come down here to that hole, and I'll mark that, do the same. That way I know as I'm going that it doesn't move. And then obviously you get your drill and just start drilling your screws in each one of those holes, and then you're good. You're good to go. It looks a lot like that. I didn't have it centered, obviously. So yeah, so once you get this on, that's it. It's good to go. So that is the complete process if you're gonna do it from scratch. I'll put the link to these below. So I usually get the black ones or I get the silver ones. Either one, they both look really, really nice. You can buy the cheaper ones, obviously. I just opt for these nicer ones. I can't think of anything else. Maybe the stencils, I can put those in the description box. That should pretty much be everything. Let me know if you guys have any questions, what your thoughts are on these. And if there's anything else you need me to link below, just shoot me a message. But definitely check out some of my other videos where I go through some of this, like the stencil on the table. It was much bigger than this, obviously, but I appreciate everyone joining me, and hopefully this information was super helpful. And I will catch you guys on the next one. Bye now.